Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Book Refuge, and my name is Jen. Hello, everyone. I did that intro like backwards and it was messing me up, but we just went with it. We just went with it today, okay? So today I'm giving you 5 random book reviews, and y'all know I love it when I'm able to like do a theme, and I'm gonna do a like Throwback Thursday. It's gonna be the theme today, which I didn't purposely set out to do, but I was trying to pick some older recommendations. Like I like doing that for these sometimes. That is kind of the, that's kind of the plan whenever I do these 5 random reviews, right? Is to bring attention to books that I haven't talked about in a while, or I think don't get enough love. But sometimes it's also just books that I can't stop talking about. Like that's sometimes the theme. But this one, it worked out quite nicely to do a Throwback Thursday. And you'll see what I mean, because it's a Throwback Thursday for 4 of the books, which are actually like, they've come out a while back. And then there's a throwback because one of the books is set in the 70s. And I was like, perfect. This is Throwback Thursday today. So let's go ahead and dive in with these. And like I said, not all of them are like old, but they're ones that, are not what I'd call a recent release anyway. So let's dive in. One of them that I feel like kind of just got skipped over in a lot of ways because there was bigger, flashier books going on. But I really loved this book and it made me smile so much. And that was A Rebel Without Claws by Juliet Cross, right? Now, Juliet Cross is not someone that's new to the channel by any means. I absolutely adore her. But I feel like this series coming from Union Square kind of got a little bit lost in the sauce, as it were. It came after the re-releases of All This Day a Spell, and then Firebird is what she's been building up to for quite a long time now, and that one got a really big release from Bramble. It was a huge deal and everything, and A Rebel Without Claws, I feel like just kind of bloop, just like plopped out there and didn't get the attention that it deserves, which to me is just a crime, okay? Because Firebird really just brought us a whole lot, both drama and excitement, whichever you prefer. But A Rebel Without Claws is the second generation of Stay a Spell. The series is Southern Charm. And this book was about the daughter of Mateo and Evie. So this is Celine. And then we have Ronan, who is a werewolf who doesn't shift into his werewolf, right? So a couple things about this one is that Ronan Reed moves to Louisiana from a different place, and he is a werewolf cage fighter, and he wants to create a team to lead into the ring. So when he sets his sight on Celine, she immediately becomes a tantalizing distraction, aka she's his mate, and his wolf is trying to tell him that, right? But she is an aura witch, so it means she wants to heal the broken. And so when she meets Ronan, she knows she's in trouble. He's everything her close-knit family would hate, a werewolf with a hot temper and a sinful grin to match. I'm just reading the back of this, as you can see. Plus, he runs with a dangerous crowd, so why can't she stay away? There's a million obstacles that stand between them, but Celine's overprotective werewolf father and brothers, also the secrets and traumas they've kept hidden from each other. However, as their forbidden romance becomes too tempting to resist, and Ronan becomes more enmeshed in the world of cage fighting, a new danger surfaces. The wolves are circling, and they're coming after his mate. So there you go. But why I enjoyed this one so much? Of course, it's because it features a lot of characters that are just so entrenched in my soul. But this is also, a fresh start in a lot of ways, right? Like that is the fun of a next gen series in a lot of ways, is that it can bring a lot of new readers into the fandom. And again, I feel like A Rebel Without Claws just didn't do that the way that I want, or like it should have. you know, this series is going to be another really like cozy series that has just a little bit of magic, but a lot of heart. It's focused on family. There's also found family aspects, because anyone who gets drawn into the Savoy family, which, I mean, let's be honest, Celine is just as much a part of the Savoy family as she is a Cruz family. You're going to be just drawn in and absolutely loved to death by everybody, right? So yeah, I feel like this book just didn't get as much love as it should have, and that is a crying shame. But this is only the beginning of this series from her. Like, there's going to be more coming. And so, you know, now's the time to jump on this one and support Juliet with this series. And, you know, if you're someone who Firebird doesn't really interest you because you don't want to read some of the darker themes that are in romantasy, or just straight up romantasy isn't your style, this could be the one for you to continue reading Juliet's books, right? So definitely wanted to bring that one back to people's attention. Okay, now this is one that, oh my gosh, oh, such a throwback for me. I read this one like as soon as it came out back in the day, which, I mean, was 5 years ago now at this point, which in the book world is just like a million years. And that is Unbreakable by Melanie Harlow. So this is book 4 in the Cloverleaf Farm series, right? And this is the series to me that hooked me on Melanie Harlow. I say this quite often. Irresistible was the first book I read by her, and then that led me to just like basically reading. I've read pretty much all of her backlist. There's just a few I haven't gotten to, and I'm just pretty much obsessed with her, you know? But this book was one that it has one of those difficult females that people like to call it. But I didn't realize at the time, because having read this in 2020, I didn't quite know as many of the like tropes and things that I was into. I just read romance books, and I wasn't quite like putting things in those buckets yet, you know? There's always that switch moment when it happens, you know, when you truly realize what you're into and then you just go for it. But this book has kind of both later in life characters. They've had divorces, they've had disappointments, and they're both just kind of making it through life, right? And so in this book, though, we have, let me just double check. Yeah, Sylvia, who I believe she is the oldest of the sisters. And so she is back at Cloverleaf Farms for, I believe we're here for the holidays, but she's also just trying to get a grip on life because her husband has left her and he got a younger woman pregnant. And that is just, you know, not only embarrassing and humiliating, but just devastating to Sylvia in a lot of ways. And so her and her 2 kids are back home for kind of the holidays, just trying to regroup. And she doesn't like connect with her kids as well as she did once. And she's just feeling really kind of down on herself, right? And so she has a bit of a meltdown and just kind of like embarrassed herself a lot. And she's hoping that Cloverleaf Farms can be a like place to start fresh. And her family's there for her. Her sisters and her parents are absolutely there for it. And then there's Henry DeSantis, who is also, I believe, divorced. Yes. And near the end of, well, not just the end of his marriage, but him and his wife have been trying for kids for ages and it never worked out. And it's really kind of zapped a lot of the life out of their relationship, which can definitely happen to people. And, you know, now he's this single bachelor guy and he works for the family. So I believe he works in the winery part of it. And so they just can't help but be drawn to each other. They're both, as I said, in similar times of life. And they also see the chance for, at the beginning of it at least, to kind of have a fling. These 2 divorced people, they aren't expecting any strings. They aren't expecting more to happen. But they just want to have some fun. And since, you know, she's staying with her parents and they're able to watch the kids sometimes, they're able to have this bit of fun between the 2 of them. And he makes her feel beautiful and wanted and sexy again. And it just really revitalizes a lot about that. But as they spend this time together, there starts to be, right, a lot of feelings that are coming up. And she's like, is this too soon? Should I be falling for someone this quick? I'm not looking to get entrenched into a relationship again. I just wanted to have some sexy fun, and maybe she's a little bit scared of all the intense feelings that come up, right? But I just love this couple. I think that they're a very underrated couple by Melanie Harlow. You know, like in her backlist, they're not the ones that scream and shout at people. But when I look at the series, like, this is actually my second favorite in the series, and it might even be my first favorite now if I were to reread them all, because I do know that for all the love I have for Irresistible, which I absolutely do, and Irresistible does a whole lot, and Mac and Franny, like, there's so much that comes from their relationship. I just love that. They really are kind of the ones that the second gen like follows, is their kids and everything. But Mac is definitely a frustrating hero for me in a lot of aspects, whereas Henry is just, there's nothing wrong with this guy. Like, he's an absolute dreamboat, and I just love that so much. So yeah, I really like this. This is the book that it's a second chance for both of them at love, but like not with each other. Or I mean, it isn't their second chance where like they were together and then they get it. Like, it's their second chance at love. After they've both had disappointments, and that can be really special too. So I love that about these two here. Okay, now how about I'll throw in the book that is my throwback, because it takes place in the 70s. So a book that I just read recently was The Past by Sawyer Bennett. I've definitely brought up Sawyer Bennett's books in these 5 random review videos before, because I think she is very underrated. And again, as I've said also about this series, I thought I was kind of done with it because of how book 3 ended. It soured me a bit. However, when I saw this book show up for review, and then I read what it was about, I was like, when I read the blurb, I was like, oh, okay, well, this might be for me. Because this is the story of how the matriarch and patriarch of this family, wow, I just forgot their names. The Blackburns. There we go. I got there without pulling up my notes. How the Blackburns got together. And we have Fiona and Tommy. And this book actually takes place in the late 1970s Ireland, when Fiona is 17, almost 18, and Tommy is 19, and is just after his freshman year of college. And he is the son of a very wealthy horse breeder in America, in Kentucky, right? Which is where the previous book in the series takes place. And his dad has a connection with a trainer in Ireland who trains racers and everything. And Tommy's actually I think he's used to quarter horses is what they train. And this trains like race horses and steeplechase and everything. And Tommy's not really like in trouble, but his dad is worried that he would get in trouble. He's worried he'll bring home a pregnant girl, or he'll get thrown off track. And he's like, I have, it's not so much like I have expectations for you, though of course he does. It's more like, kid, you gotta get back on track. And I think a summer of being in a new place and being kind of forced to, work will be good for you, right? Because he is a bit of a spoiled rich boy in a lot of aspects. He knows it. And he gets sent over to Ireland to work with, I think it's Freddie, but I could be wrong about that. But anyway, this guy who's friends with his dad is co-owners, like these two brothers own this farm/ranch that has both like breeding and racing and training and all that stuff going on. And Fiona is the oldest daughter. Again, she's 17. And she is a bit of a rebel, at least in her dad's eyes, because she doesn't want to just get married and be the next connection in the family link. Like, she wants to live her own life, and she wants to be a steeplechase racer, and her uncle is actually kind of teaching her these things behind her dad's back. And so when Tommy shows up there to work for her uncle, they of course meet each other and have this kind of whirlwind summer romance. And it's kind of an interesting one because it's not like Tommy's from the wrong side of the tracks, he's not a poor boy, it's not those things, but it still did feel like Downton Abbey in a certain way, because the father has plans for who she's going to marry, and she's not allowed to do certain things, and Tommy is the forbidden American fruit. So again, it's not like he's a pauper who's there. He's also from a very wealthy family, and in fact, he's from a family that, you know, Fiona's dad might want connections with, but he's pretty much stuck in his ways of the plans he has for his daughter, and so it makes him a bit of a butt to deal with, okay? Like, let's be honest, he's a bit of an asshole. Her dad is not the greatest, right? But these two just have this amazing connection, and I love how, even though it's set in the 70s, Tommy thinks the fact that she races is so cool, even though it does, as he begins to have feelings for her, like, it does terrify him a little bit, because steeplechase is dangerous on a good day. But he's also just really fascinated by her, that she's able to do that. And he has, I mean, let's be honest, he has mad respect for her that she can do that. And you just can't help but be transfixed by her beautiful red hair and her spunky personality. And, you know, he knows he needs to be careful, because this isn't just a random girl at college. Like, not only is this the niece of the, you know, his dad's friend, but he could, you know, really mess up her life if he just did whatever he wanted to. You know, he needs to be careful with what he does. And Fiona, she is risking a lot to fall for Tommy. You know, she goes against her father. She could lose everything she's known. And is this summer romance she is, you know, getting swept up in, is it going to catch her when she falls, type of thing? Now, you and I both know that this wouldn't be a romance if it wasn't going to happen. And we also, if you've read either of the previous, you know, of any of the books in the series, you know that Tommy and Fiona, it's going to work out just fine. But there was just something good about this one. You know, I don't always love a throwback story, but the way it was told was really beautiful. And I listened to the audio. I love the narrators who did this one, which was, oh, their names just went out of my head. Kit Swan and, oh, I can't remember his name. Dang it. But they're a duo. They do like all of Sawyer Bennett's books, and I really love them. The hero definitely got the Sean Masters. There it was. Sean Masters and Kit Swan did this one. So, very good. But anyway, that is my throwback. That is a new release, actually. And answers for this. You can read this one first if you'd like to. It has a little bit of spoilers for, it is set in the present in the beginning and the end, because it is like a memory, her telling it, but it doesn't jump back and forth. It isn't flashbacks. It's one solid story. So it's like the prologue and the epilogue take place in present day, and then Fiona is telling her and Tommy's story to someone. So it does spoil at the beginning a bit of some stuff that happens in like the feud, and I can't remember book 2, but like those first 2 books. But honestly, you could start with this one if you want to, or you could start at the beginning and read them all. They're all very quick books to get through. The audios each are only like 7 hours or something. So highly recommend. And yeah, that's one for my throwback. Okay, now we have another one that is maybe a bit more of a recent throwback as well. And I mean, I just love this series though, so I'm happy to find reasons to bring it up. And I think one of the books that doesn't get as much attention, because I often say it is a bit of a repeat of the first one, but that doesn't mean it isn't still good. And maybe you're more interested in this story than you are the first one. And I think you can, you know, of course you can read a story out of order. You could read this as a standalone. That's just fine. So I still want to talk about it, even if I do like the first and the third one actually better than this one, right? Like, I like to change it up, right? We can't only talk about our favorites all the time. And that is Weston. Now, I still gave this book 5 stars. Granted, I did read an arc. It was probably more of like 4.5. But I gave book 1 a 6, and I gave book 3 a 5. And this one was just slightly less than that. And part of the reason too why it's a little less is because there is a lot of like repetitive stuff in it. But this is book 2 in the Sovereign Mountain series, and this one is Weston, who is kind of a employee of Sovereign, and he also falls deeply in love with a woman who's not his. Okay, so but the only difference is in this one is that Diane Carter and him do start to fall before she gets forced into a marriage that I believe her brother forces her into to use her as a pawn. And Weston is then kind of like forced to stay away from her for a while, but she's his and he isn't backing away, and he's going to find a way to have her and get her back. But in this one, let me just read some of the things in this one. So Diane has lived on Carter Farms her entire life, raised by her grandmother. She learned to be strong, smart, and independent. But after her grandmother's death, Diane finds herself stuck in a tedious existence under the thumb of her bitter brother, David. All that changes when a cowboy from Sovereign Mountain, the biggest and most infamous ranch around, shows up. He's dangerous and forbidden, and he pulls her into a whirlwind, scorching hot romance that's doomed from the start, right? So this is them. They fall in love before something happens. But when faced with the possibility of losing the family farm, Diane is forced to give up what she wants the most, freedom to choose her own destiny. So she's forced into a marriage to save the family farm. She's not as alone as she thinks, because Weston, the cowboy from Sovereign Mountain, never moved on, but he's getting his girl back. So he understands why she's forced into this marriage. She doesn't have a lot of choices. She doesn't have anywhere to go. She doesn't have money. And honestly, she doesn't feel like she has the will to choose, because she doesn't want her grandmother's pride and joy to be lost. But there's also that thing that, is it better to be lost or to be in the hands of, whose hands it's going to end up in? That is actually a question that needs to be answered as well. But Weston and Sovereign, they want this land as well. And, Diane, she may be in a tough situation. And actually the person she's forced to marry, we will have heard of if you've read Sovereign. But this is another case of like, okay, let me get back to this. This is another BDSM romance. And I think the part where I say I compare it to Sovereign a bit is that this is a series of BDSM, okay? It's a series of dominant men. It's a series of them wanting to be in BDSM contracts with their women, right? And that can feel very repetitive when you're like, okay, is every cowboy in a 100-mile radius into BDSM and rope play and wanting this whatever? And that is what can be frustrating, right? However, 2 things. Number 1, that is what this series is advertised as. It's not like the author is like tricking you by there being BDSM in every book. That's what this is. If you really like BDSM, you will like the nuances and the differences in each of these relationships. I think that there is much more of a difference between like Deacon and Sovereign than like Weston and Sovereign. And that is why like I really liked Deacon as well. But there also is something a bit lighter, just a little bit. There's something a bit lighter about Weston Quinn than there is about Sovereign, okay? Weston isn't as bogged down by trauma and pain as some of the other characters are. And so though he's still into BDSM, he's not as solidly, I must have control of everything for my own sanity type, right? And that is something about Sovereign that can be too much for people. So anyway, I don't know if I've convinced you to try this one after my rambling around in circles, but I really enjoy this series and I love what Rhea Morris Edwards is doing and her books. I'm so glad I stumbled upon Sovereign when I did. Like, it was just such a good story. And I love cowboy romance, okay? And I love that there's still more being written all the time. I love that it's just become such a big thing in the romance community, and I'm always going to be excited for them. So, there you go. Okay, and then the last one for this little throwback here. I just think this one is straight up good fun, as a lot of books by this author are. And it has some tropes in it that you just don't see super often, right? And that is, I have here The Frat Boy by Nikki Sloan. And so this one is kind of like new adult era, but her books are all erotic romance. So even though the characters in this one specifically are both in college, you know, it's not new adult in the same way that like Elle Kennedy is, okay? But in this one, we have Colin Novak, and the heroine is Madison. And she's at a sorority and he's at a fraternity, and there ends up being kind of this like spat between the two of them that gets them both kicked out, okay? Now, for her, this is bad because she needs a place to live, and being in the sorority gave her like a place to live. And for him, he is from a bit more of a privileged family, but his father would be like very upset if he told him that he got kicked out of it, and there's a whole bunch. So they both have different reasons for needing a new place to live, but they're both still valid reasons, okay? Now, there's this place in this Nashville neighborhood that isn't far from campus, and it could be the perfect solution. It is actually a bit of a, let's say, a content filming house, okay? There is this couple who, by the way, if you go way throwback in Nikki Sloan world, you'll actually know the couple who owns this place. They're a part of the the 3 Simple Rule world, the Blindfold Club. They're from that kind of world, and so you'd know them there. But there's a married couple who own this house, and they create content there, okay? And you can get basically hired to be at this house and participate in filming yourself, both solo and with others, to basically pay your way to be there. And not only just pay to be there, but actually make money doing this, okay? So if you can't get it, it's basically like an OnlyFans house, okay? That's what it is. And they're looking for both a man and a woman to take there because they had a few people move out recently. And so they both audition to be there, not realizing that it's going to be their rival that they are going up against, right? And so it's fun because like their first audition to be there is actually with each other, and you know, they hate each other kind of at the beginning of this, but yet they're forced into, well, not forced, that's the wrong word. They're forced to audition. They're not forced to have the sex. Like, they could say no to this, but like they both want this spot. They both want a spot in this house, and because they're both trying out for it, they're forced to audition together. Okay, there's no forced sex that happens in this. This isn't that. Everything's very consensual. It's just they are kind of like gritting their teeth and trying to get one up on each other in this scene, trying to make each other like lose it too soon. And it's honestly like a really hot scene. And then the rest of the story is them, you know, they're filming together. They're actually getting to know one another. And there's some super hot scenes because not only do they film solo scenes, they film scenes together, but there are other people in the house they both perform with and do scenes with, and they're making content. So this one definitely is a sex worker. Woo, it's warming up here, you can tell. This is definitely a sex worker romance, and I really, really, really love those. For sure I do. And this is a hot one. So there you go. Those are 5 stories that are all throwback in some way, some more recent than others, but I just wanted to give you 5 random reviews to ones that maybe you have read these, but you haven't thought about them in a while, but just wanted to give you those that have been on my mind. So I'll have links to all those books down below, and you can check those out, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.